Hi guys, my name's Chandra. I am Nick's wife. I'm sure you've heard a little bit about me. I wanted to make a part two to the video that he posted to try to explain a little bit further about what's been going on my half, things from my perspective, also to clarify a couple things. First thing I want to clarify is the paper that I took to the police was not 8 pages, it was 6 pages. Second thing I want to clarify is I'm not yet a first responder. I'm in the process of training to become a first responder and firefighter. Since I'm now pregnant, I'm not going to be able to take Fire 1 this year. It's going to have to wait one more year, but it is something that I'm very passionate about. I feel like in small towns like this, a lot of things like this probably happen. Investigations aren't done thoroughly. You'll have to excuse me, my voice gets shaky. I'm very emotionally invested in this, obviously. This is my mother, this is my family, this is my life. It's been very difficult to even express to anybody because, quite frankly, I feel crazy even talking about it. So I'm going to go from the start, which is 5 years ago, yes, my father supposedly killed himself. My mother called my husband woke me up, and I walked over. I saw everything. The cop did have me go in the room. Well, he started taking my statement, and he had me go into the room to retrieve the other gun that my father had not used, which, to be honest, fucked my head up for a good long while. I didn't sleep. I had night terrors. I had night terrors for over a year. It wasn't until I moved that I finally got a full night's sleep and didn't realize how tired I was, I guess, until I actually got some sleep. 16 hours after my dad died, I absolutely could not get anything out of my head. I literally had to step over his dead body to retrieve the other gun for the officer. I searched the entire room because I had no idea what the guns looked like. I mean, I'm not a gun fan. I had no idea what the guns looked like. I had no idea where they were. But I remember being so angry. I thought, why did I have to do that? You know, why did I have to do that? And I asked quite a few friends, why did they make me do that? And their response was that cops don't want the family to go crazy and shoot themselves or something like that in that form of circumstance. And again, I'm like, then why did they make me do that, you know? So anyway, 16 hours later I couldn't sleep, so I got myself a journal and I wrote down every detail of the single night, down to the song that I played in my head as I walked over. Shut the book, never opened it again. As Nick said, it was really hard for me to be here. I had post-traumatic stress really bad. I couldn't sleep. Something as small as red Christmas lights would set me into a panic attack. Like, I would go right back to that night. It was like reliving it constantly over and over and over again. I'd spill a bowl of ravioli and the sauce would make me have a meltdown. And at that point I did see a therapist for a little while, to try to learn some coping mechanisms for handling my PTSD, to help me bring myself, I guess, back to that I'm here right now, that I wasn't there. So as he said, we did move away. My family, I felt growing up, was a fairly tight-knit family. I was very close to both of my parents. I always felt my mom was my best friend. So when she started to see this guy, I was very genuinely happy for her. I thought, I don't want her to be alone for her whole life, you know. She's quite young yet. It's a long time to be alone. I was happy she had found somebody. As Nick said, we moved back. She essentially begged us to move back. She offered to pay our U-Haul to get us here. So we came back to a place where there aren't a lot of job opportunities. There isn't a lot of stuff to do. The weather goes from like too hot to too cold. If you want to so much as go to the zoo with your family, you have to save up pretty much a whole weekend trip. You have to go out of town, drive 4 hours one way just to see anything. I mean, this is literally the middle of nowhere. So there's not a lot of room for opportunity. Last October is when everything came to a head. As Nick said, my mom had been pretty much gone since we came back. We took care of her cat. She essentially left her cat covered in a garage full of shit. Excuse my language. But we went over there. He was really sick. He was covered in shit. The whole place was, there was puke, there was poop. She locked him in there because she was tired of him messing in the house. Well, he was messing in the house because he was alone in this house. Little backstory on the house. We grew up in a very small house. When my father passed away, my mother took part of the insurance money that she was left and added on. And by added on, I mean she added about 4 sizes of her house that already exists. Very customized, very personable. She told everybody she wanted to have a place for her whole family to gather. And I can count on one hand how many times we've had family gatherings there since we've been back anyway. So she pretty much built a mansion to leave it sit. Sorry if I bounce around. This is never been recording any of this. I've never recorded or anything like that, so I'm a little bit not in my element per se. So she met this guy, as I was saying. Very happy for her. We got to meet him. As Nick said, he was encouraging my kids to call him Grandpa. First time I met him, I kind of liked him. After being around him a couple times and seeing how my mom acted around him, completely different from the person she had ever been since I knew her, I started to get some uneasy feelings. My dad genuinely loved my mother. My mother was disabled. I put disabled because you'll see why. From the time I was 16, she received Social Security administrative benefits for narcolepsy with cataplexy attacks and severe asthma. How she would cope with her severe asthma is she would sit in her house and chain smoke. She wasn't able to go to church. She wasn't able to go fishing with my dad. She couldn't even do yard work. Due to her narcolepsy, she couldn't drive herself to a doctor's appointment. My dad had to take off work to continually take her to doctors because she couldn't drive. After Dad died, she had no problem doing physical work to build this house. She's able to be out in 85% humidity and not even need an inhaler, which I find very odd. Typically, if you're in love with somebody for long periods of time and they pass away, your health typically declines. It doesn't improve. And her disabilities have all but vanished, which good for her, but kind of leads you to question on just about everything else. I never saw any of this coming. I didn't ask for any of this. I don't want this to be my life. I want my family back, but I can't look the other way when something like this happens. I have this stupid moral compass, and it screams at me all the time. So, as much as I'd love to push it aside, unfortunately, due to what I saw and what I've seen since, I will forever, no matter what, unless somebody can show me hardcore 100% proof she did not kill my father, I will forever believe she killed my father. October 11th is when we had our falling out. It's when I found out that she knew she was seeing a married man, and let me tell you that I was stunned because it's not how my mother raised me. My mother pretty much raised us to believe if somebody's married, you don't interfere with their marriage, and if somebody loves you, that they always put you first. You should never be somebody's secret. So, not saying that everybody's perfect. There are a lot of people who have affairs. A lot of people who realize that there are mistakes made and they're able to work past it and improve it. But you can only improve on something if you first admit it's wrong. She has yet to admit to me that it was wrong. She told me that I was in the wrong because I did what I felt I had to do. I felt I was protecting my mother. I thought she was being played. I thought she was being scammed. I didn't want to see my mom hurt, so I did what I had to do to find out the truth. Um, I think part of what upsets me the most is that my mother asked us to move here and put us all on the back burner to sit in a house that's empty for 5 minutes until somebody could sneak away from his wife. Like, that's our level of importance to her. That's how genuinely important my kids are to her. It irritates me that I was lied to. It irritates me that I was manipulated um, into doing things like she told me that her boyfriend didn't know she smoked cigarettes, so before he'd come visit every time, who had to paint her bedroom, my husband and I, so he wouldn't find out. Um, then the day we had our blowout, she told me, well, he knows I smoked, but he just doesn't like the smell. So you lied to me again. Um, I did call her out about the guns the day I was over there. And she lied to me 3 times in a row about it. The first time she tried basically pushing the blame on me. She said very snottily, well, I had them hidden in the pheasant feathers, but then you wanted them. And I was like, Mom, I lived in Pierre when I got the pheasant feathers from you, so I'm going to ask you again. And I kept pushing. I got 3 different answers before she started sobbing suddenly, then telling us that my dad was this abusive man, and I really at that point didn't know what to believe. My head just started spinning. The look on her face when I asked her alone made my gut sink. Like, I feel that told me everything I needed to know. That was really the last day we actually spoke. I didn't know what to do about it. I felt like, I mean, this shook me to my core. Everything that I've been raised to believe is wrong. This woman didn't raise me this way. Why is it okay if she does it? And to never admit it's wrong. She's still telling me I'm in the wrong. And she said, I know that seeing a married man is wrong in so many people's eyes, but she still isn't admitting that it's wrong, which I feel it is. It's wrong on a lot of levels. I didn't know what to do with it. I was losing sleep. I started having flashes that night. And then I got to thinking, well, maybe my mind's playing tricks on me. So I opened up my journal and I read it from that night. And then I'm realizing this isn't in my head. I mean, that night's burned into my memory, unfortunately, which is something I don't understand about her ever-changing stories about it. Because that night's burned into my memory. I mean, I won't forget it. I don't know how she can go from saying he was laying one way on the bed to another, from saying the light was on to the light wasn't on. The stories have changed so many times. But my main concern when this all started was that I didn't want her to get taken advantage of. And I will never apologize for doing what I felt was right by protecting my mother. I sure as hell hope that if something happens to my spouse and I'm seeing somebody and they're being unfaithful to me, that somebody brings it to my attention. I feel really horrible for the family that was broken apart. I feel horrible for the 48-year marriage that was destroyed due to her actions. But I'm not responsible for that, and I do not feel bad for protecting my mother. So I began therapy because I didn't know what to do. I felt like a crazy person going in there. I was talking to my therapist. We finally came to the conclusion that I had to do what I felt was right. That was the only way I was going to get closure. We pretty much came to the agreement that, unfortunately, no matter what, even if they could reopen it with no body, no gun, there's not a way to prove much. Let it be known that we do not know how long they were talking. Everybody's been told a different story. Everybody's been told a different story about how they met. So I did. I finally got up the courage to go talk to the police. I learned that no forensics were run. I brought them 6 pages of circumstantial evidence, pointing to why I believe that she did what she did. Shortly after that, I mean, I went crazy about this for a while. I really did. I obsessed. I contacted private investigators. I contacted companies that can test ashes. I wanted to know if there was any way they could test my dad's ashes with a little bitty bit that I have left in my little rose out there to see if he had too many sleeping pills in his system, to test my theory. There's a lot wrong with this situation. My mother claims that she thinks my dad had cancer and that's why he did what he did. Yet she will not let my sister and I have his medical records, which we asked her for before our falling out, mind you. She refused. I even tried saying, you don't need to see them, but I mean, if we're at higher risks for certain cancers, we have the right to know. And she won't allow us to see those. It's been a hard thing to cope with. I don't know that I'll ever have closure believing that my mom killed my dad. I unfortunately will never believe that he killed himself. Since our falling out, a lot of horrible stuff happened. We did have a confrontation. I was on my way to my sister's and my nephew stopped me and said that we're really sorry, but Grandma says that we have to throw all your stuff that's in storage in your yard, and this is like the middle of winter. So I went over and I confronted her. I'm like, that's a really shitty thing to do. It's middle of winter. You're just going to leave my stuff rotting outside, not give me the chance to move it or nothing. You're going to have somebody else move it, knowing I don't have a place to put it. Some of us aren't leaving. I was yelling at her. I was quite upset. I told her, I have you figured out. I don't want nothing to do with you. I don't want my kids to have nothing to do with you. And she said, well, you can't stop me from seeing them in public. That I can't, but I can sure make sure that you're not alone with them. As I was leaving, she told me, your fun's just beginning. I did email the cop and tell him that I was just threatened. I said I don't want to press charges at this time. I just want it to be known in case something weird happens to me. It was at that point that I asked Nick to move our bed from away from the window. I'm literally shaking right now because it's a lot of emotion. It's really hard. I don't think you can ever relate unless you've been through something similar. And if you've been through something similar, pretty please contact me and tell me how exactly you coped with this, because it's maddening. Like Nick said, I was arrested, or cops knocked on my door claiming I stole her checkbook, and as you all know, I had bacterial meningitis this February. I was sick for 2 months. I lost my good paying job. Took them a long time to figure out what was wrong with me. Ended up, I had spinal meningitis, bacterial meningitis. It could have killed me. I could have lost my arms. I could have lost my legs. And as I'm sitting in the hospital, she puts this big long post on her Facebook about me, and one of my friends sent it to me, and it's accusing me of ransacking her house and doing drugs and just horrible, horrible things. And some of my relatives are chiming in on it, and like, well, the love of a mother, I could die tomorrow, and here she is bashing me. I want to let it be known, Nick and I spent, not our anniversary this year, but the one before that, at her house shoveling water out of her basement. We had a big hailstorm. One of her windows had broken, and she was too impatient to stay and get it fixed before she left town, so water was literally flowing into her basement. So rather than spending our anniversary together, doing something we enjoy, we were shoveling water out of her basement, hauling it up upstairs, trying to fix her window, putting fans up. It was not fun. And to be told that I ransacked her house after that, I was pretty hurt, pretty upset. I did the exact opposite. I took care of her property. We both took care of her property. We both watched her property. I have her damn cat still. All the things she's asked for back, she has yet to ask for this damn cat back, and he's He's 13, he's diabetic, his food's quite expensive, but I can't let him go. I find it kind of disheartening because this cat ranked above us a long time. Uh, she used to make this cat birthday cakes. She left it to die. So we did get her to take him to the vet before our fallout. Found out he had diabetes because he was just about dead on our floor. But we have kept him. I will keep him till the day he dies. Unfortunately. But it's gotten insane. Cops are calling me left and right. I have actually put 2 calls into the sheriff's office. No, 3. When she was throwing our stuff outside, I just called to ask if I could do anything about it, and they told me no, that was a civil matter. So I let it go. Nick called to have her trespassed in May, and we were told she was trespassed, and then we called again to have her trespassed when she came on our property, and we have picture proof of it. I don't call them left and right. I know she's called them on me. She has people around town watching us. She's let us know that. Plus, it's quite apparent when the same lady drives by your house 13 times when you're outside with your kids. To me, it's like I don't care. I don't have anything to hide, but really, you're supposed to be starting your new life, so you need to go do that. I asked the city to stake my property so I knew where to mow, because I wasn't mowing her yard again this year. That night, my phone rang. Actually, let me back that one up. City stakes my property. That night, it's 9:30 at night. I'm doing my dishes. My neighbor calls my husband and said, I want to let you know that there's somebody in your backyard hiding by your mom's shed recording you right now. Recording into my windows at night. So Nick goes out to see who that is. Meanwhile, my phone rings and it's the deputy sheriff. He says, Teresa called from Tennessee and she's claiming that you're threatening to tear down her shed and you're stealing her land. I told the deputy, I don't have time barely to take care of my own yard. I have no intentions of ripping down any shed. I just want to know where to mow. That's when I told him, look, I'm being recorded right now by somebody. And he said, that's a civil matter. That's stalking. That is stalking. That is harassment. Somebody is in my backyard, hiding behind a vehicle, recording into my windows at night with my children in the home, and that's civil. I was pretty upset. So I said, fine, just please put it with the stack, because every time they've come out for anything or they've been called on me, I say, just please put it in the stack. I'm not going to say the name. A certain officer has a stack of information. Please just compile it, because I want everything documented. It's really upsetting that if this were happening to somebody else and not me, that would be considered stalking. I'm watched by numerous people, as I said. My mother has told us and other people that she has people watching us. You can watch me all you want. I live a pretty mundane life. Like, I work and I come home. And I'm on the fire department, so occasionally we have meetings. I can imagine with all this that I'm probably just going to resign from that, because it's probably going to reflect poorly on everything. Because I know that I sound like a crazy lady. So I've been recorded. I have been stalked. I have been harassed. And there's nothing I can do about it. And I feel that that points a lot toward what I'm suggesting. Because to me it's like, if you didn't, why are you out to destroy me? I am your flesh and blood. My sister is your flesh and blood. If you could be this vicious and malicious toward us, God only knows what you could have done to your husband. You know, I don't feel safe in my own home. I grew up in this town. It's a teeny tiny town in the middle of nowhere. I have to lock my doors. I have to have cameras up. Um, just so I feel a little more safe, which is pretty damn ridiculous. I felt a lot more comfortable in an inner city, even in slummy neighborhoods with a bunch of freaking homeless people who are on drugs. I felt a lot more comfortable. But the last straw for me is, like Nick told you, I am pregnant. It was not planned. We are excited, but we don't want to bring another kid into this mess. I mean, I definitely don't want my children around her. My children are entitled to see their grandmother if they want to. At that point, I wish it would be supervised visitation. I don't trust her boyfriend. I don't trust a word out of her mouth. But the last straw for me was, I was coming home from work last Thursday. I think it was last Thursday. And I was being tailgated by a vehicle. They were turning their headlights off, and they were creeping up close to my bumper, and then they'd back off, and they turned their headlights back on, and they did this, and I didn't know who to call. Can't call the cops. What are they gonna say? Don't call me? Like they did the last time? So I called Nick, and I said, I just want to let you know, in case I'm run off the road, this is happening right now. So now I no longer even feel safe driving to work. My therapist left, unfortunately, so I had to start all over with a new therapist. And something my therapist and I right now are working on is finding closure and being able to express how I feel. Like, she said, you shouldn't have to be silent. You should be able to voice how you feel. If you feel that your mother killed your father, you should be able to say, I think my mother killed my father. And you shouldn't be ashamed of that, and you shouldn't be ashamed of how you feel. It's still terribly hard. Like I said, I never in a million years would have imagined that this is my life. I unfortunately cannot believe a thing she says. Will I ever have closure? I don't think so. Some steps that I'm taking to try to find my closure are, I've been writing about it. I've actually been writing about it since it started. I think it'll make for one hell of a book. Something that I want to do, that's a goal of mine, is to become a first responder, to make sure that this doesn't happen to somebody else, to be sure that if there are red flags, somebody brings it to the attention of the officer on call, so proper steps are taken so that no one else is left questioning forever, no one else's family is ripped apart. I want to make it another one of my goals to make it mandatory in this state for, if there is an unnatural death of any kind, for an autopsy to be mandatory. I don't think an autopsy should be an option. I was standing right there. When the mortician asked my mother, do you want a full autopsy? And her exact response was, and in this tone, no, I know how he died. To me, if you really genuinely believe that your spouse had cancer, why at that point wouldn't you want a full autopsy run? Wouldn't you want to have closure? And she says, well, I just couldn't live with myself if he actually did kill himself. Well, I think the truth of the matter is you couldn't live with yourself if someone else found out the truth. We live in 2020. Coronavirus, fires, hurricanes. It's crazy times for everybody. Everybody's struggling. And we all have enough going on without all this extra added bullshit. Excuse my language again. It's unfortunate that I don't have a family that I can call, that I can confide in, that I can feel close with. It's unfortunate that the person who I thought my mother is clearly not there. I'm left to question if she's changed recently or if everything she's ever done has been for show. Um, it's literally shook me to my absolute core. It made me want to go back and reopen everything in my childhood. And my therapist said, but what good does that do you? And it doesn't. No matter what happened, I can't change it. The only thing I can do is try to better my life, to try to have a better life for my kids. Gotta say, bless my husband, because unfortunately his name's been dragged through a lot of mud just because he's married to me. And he has to watch me fall apart all the time and try to put my pieces back together. But I decided to put this out there because I felt like some things maybe weren't very clear. There's been a lot of things that I've been lied to about, as Nick said. I was told way back in 2015 when my father passed away that his estate was taken care of. 5 days after our fallout is when I received the paper to sign a waiver of bond for my mother to be his personal representative. And I don't mean like she just said, oh, that's done. Like, one day I was over and she told me this long drawn out story about how she went to court and she was appointed personal representative and blah, blah, blah. Then I heard a whole nother story about how everything was taken care of, the estate was settled, there was nobody to, I'm not sure what she said at that point. Basically, nobody contested what she said. My sister is not doing as well with this as I am. I try to find a reason to laugh about it. My sister has already moved. She's unfortunately let it get to her. I've gotten to the point where I've let some stuff get to me, and I've said some things that maybe I shouldn't have, but I don't think anybody can understand how stressful it is. And you can only take so much. You can only take so much of people watching you. You can only take so much of not feeling safe in your own house. And people think you're crazy because this is your life. People making up lies about you, that you sell drugs, just anything. Like, you can only take so much until you want to break. This has been my most trying year. I think that the reason I'm pregnant is because God knew that I needed something to get me through this. I needed a light, per se. It's just been absolutely unbelievable. And every time you think it can't get worse, something else happens. Cops are called on you for stealing this or doing that, or asking questions around town about you about something that's hearsay. And again, investigate me all you want. I live a very boring life. Drive by my house as many times as you want. Live a pretty mundane life. I've spent the summer working 2 jobs. Did not have a lot of time for my kids. All to put thousands of dollars toward a lawyer to try to keep this woman from my kids. Because unfortunately, I live in a state where if you're a grandparent and you've seen those kids, you have rights to them. It doesn't matter that I am a fit parent and of solid mind. I can't just say, no, she can't see them, and that's that. She can take me to court, and I have to hire a lawyer. And unfortunately, that's money that could have went toward a nice vacation for my family and I. But priority is priority, which is keeping my kids safe. Is my number one priority. Keeping myself safe. Keeping my sanity, which gets harder and harder every day, the more things that happen. As Nick mentioned, this morning was rough. Went outside and her light was on upstairs, and I don't know if it's her. Yes, we caught a car on the camera, but all we saw is headlights. I don't know if it's her. I don't know if it's just someone she sent to mess with me. I don't know if it was somebody winterizing her house, although I find that hard to believe someone would do that at 6 o'clock in the morning. My kids are greatly affected by this, especially my older two. Since my mother and my falling out, my ex-husband and his wife have become best buds with my mother, which I find funny because when I first moved back, they were complaining about how absent she's been since I had left, and that they were happy that I was back. They didn't really ever hang out. My ex-husband didn't come to my father's funeral. Now they're grilling out with her whenever she's here. I have requested them to, if they're going to let the kids be around her, to please have it be supervised, and he pretty much told me to fuck off, because I guess that's how co-parenting works. I find that wrong on many levels. I would never foster a relationship between someone and his family without his approval. I would definitely listen to his concerns if he came to me, but that's just me trying to always do the right thing. But thank you for listening. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for keeping us in your thoughts and in your prayers. And again, if you know of anybody who's been through anything similar, I could sure use a friend to talk to who's been through something similar to find out what sort of coping mechanisms have worked for them. I feel like I sound crazy even talking about it. That's what I told my therapist. You're going to think I'm crazy. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I can't make this kind of shit up. I wish it was all fake, but it's not. It's our life. So again, thank you for listening. I know you haven't heard the whole story, but now you've heard hopefully enough to at least piece together and formulate your own opinion. I don't expect anybody to hate her. I don't expect anybody to really pity me. I just want to get my story out there. I want people to understand why things are the way they are between her and I, and kind of clear the air, I guess. So thank you again for listening. Goodbye.